Hello.
So how did we start the drug war? What's it based on? Giving the example of marijuana in my last video, I talked about the history of banning that, but it was based on the idea that it's a highly dangerous substance. So we simply need to eradicate the substance from the earth. Same with the other drugs. During the drug war years, during the Just Say No campaign, we were told that cocaine was just this highly addictive substance, that it was an evil in and of itself, and that people exposed to it would do what these lab rats did, which they talked about how lab rats were put in a cage and they were offered water or cocaine, and the rats would hit the cocaine, they would tap the cocaine until they obliterated themselves. So 9 out of the 10 rats would overdose given those two options, the water or the cocaine. And given those assumptions, you'd be like, wow, I suppose banning them is the only option. Although if you think about it, there are all kinds of substances in your home that, let's face it, if you ingested them, they could kill you. Marijuana not being one of them. Alcohol is 114 times more lethal than cannabis, not necessarily falling into the dangerous category, but that one was banned on the premise that it made people who smoked it go into a murderous rage. With cocaine, the presumption was that it would kill you, that it's so physically addictive that you will just use cocaine repeatedly until you die. So is that assumption based in reality? There is really good evidence to suggest that addiction has very little to do with physical dependency. Addiction has more to do with disconnection. Bruce Alexander was a professor who looked at that study that I just mentioned where the rats were offered the option between cocaine and water, and he said rats are social animals and they weren't given anything else to do. So he said, well, what if I designed a happy place for rats and then offered them cocaine and water? So he created Rat Park. He created a place with plenty to do, lots of friends, and then he put water and cocaine, 2 bottles, in Rat Park. The rats, of course, had to figure out which one was drugged and which one wasn't, but after that, very few of the rats even touched the drug, and none of them overdosed. So it completely disproved the notion that cocaine is so inherently addictive in and of itself that when encountered, it will be used until one destroys oneself. We also had a very human example of this same phenomenon. We had soldiers in the Vietnam War, many of whom were completely miserable. The Vietnam War was a really bad era for the American military. A lot of them would come back, be spit on, treated like the enemy. Then they were living in miserable conditions being over in Vietnam. 20% of American soldiers became addicted to heroin in the Vietnam War. People were understandably concerned that they would then come back and we would have this massive problem trying to reintegrate these people into society and help cure them of this addiction. What ended up happening? Once the soldiers came back to the United States, 95% of them simply stopped using heroin. They didn't require treatment, they just stopped. So is it true that the drugs themselves are the root of addiction, or is it more likely that it's your cage? And your cage can be anything. Your cage can be shame, it can be fear, it can be feeling trapped in your life, and when you feel trapped in your life, you try to find a way out of it, whether mentally or otherwise, and you can become addicted to just about anything, food, sex, shopping, gambling. We have innumerable addictions that as humans, things that we can connect to, that we fixate on to take us mentally away from our pain. So it's a form of medicating. And what we really need for that is learning how to get out of the cage. And there are people who specialize in that. But what isn't the answer is to create a war around these chemicals. There's a whole lot of chemicals out there that people can use to get high. So the notion that we can somehow eradicate the world of all of the chemicals that we know about and don't yet know about that can get people high, it's not a goal that I would even set out to accomplish, frankly, because I don't think we really want to, say, eliminate marijuana, cannabis from planet Earth. Do we really want to eliminate marijuana from planet Earth? Do we really want to eliminate cocaine from planet Earth? All of the things that people could, magic mushrooms, LSD, meth, all the things that would need to be controlled. And the thing is that the repercussions of that, we have the highest incarceration rate in the world. We have the highest incarceration both by plain numbers and per capita in the world. And about half of that is due to this drug war. We're fighting addicts as though we're at war with them instead of trying to help them. We're also creating a whole bunch of other unintended consequences because we spend a lot of money fighting this war on drugs. The war on drugs itself is used tyrannically. We have no-knock raids. We have asset forfeiture. We have people who get killed because it's on the black market, that people end up in harm's way like they did during Prohibition. We also have kids who have parents ripped out of the home for doing no more than smoking pot. And I don't know about you, but I know some very responsible people who smoke marijuana and are excellent parents, and I would hate to have their kids taken away from them. Foster care statistically is actually worse than even a child staying in a less than desirable natural home. If we weren't creating this massive problem by fighting this drug war, we would have far more resources left over for productive things like helping addicts instead of fighting a war against them, putting them in cages, taking them away from their children. So we have all of these unintended consequences that come along with fighting the drug war, and what if there was nothing inherent in these chemicals that had to do with people's addiction to them anyway? Thanks for watching.